Negative self-talk is one of the most dangerous patterns that silently blocks prayers, and most people don't even realize they're doing it. When you speak words like, "I can't, I'm not worthy, my life will never change," or, "Maybe God doesn't care about me," you are not just expressing frustration, you are shaping your spiritual reality. Prayer isn't just about the moment you close your eyes. It is also about the daily words you speak when no one is listening. These quiet phrases, often said out of habit, can cancel the very faith you're trying to build. You may pray with hope, but throughout the day you speak with doubt, and those two energies cannot work together. Faith opens doors, but negative declarations shut them before blessings can reach you. Many people pray for strength but then say, "I'm so weak." They pray for opportunities but constantly repeat, "I know nothing good ever happens for me." They ask for guidance but then confidently declare, "I don't think I'll ever get out of this situation." These phrases may seem small, but spiritually they are powerful. Every word carries weight. When your speech contradicts your prayer, you create a spiritual conflict. You are planting seeds of faith but watering them with doubt. Imagine asking for rain while holding an umbrella the entire time. You're prepared for the opposite of what you prayed for. That is what negative self-talk does to your prayers. One of the reasons negative words block blessings is that they slowly reshape your identity. When you repeatedly tell yourself, "I can't," sooner or later you will stop trying. When you declare, "I'm not worthy," you will resist the very opportunities God sends your way. Low self-talk teaches your mind to expect disappointment, and when you expect disappointment, you interpret life through a lens that filters out good things. Even when blessings come, you won't recognize them because your self-image has been trained to reject them. Prayer is powerful, but so is speech. Your spiritual progress depends on the alignment of both. We often underestimate the spiritual damage done by phrases spoken casually. Someone wakes up tired and says, "I can't deal with life anymore." Someone struggles at work and mutters, "I'm such a failure." Someone faces rejection and immediately concludes, "I'm not good enough for anything." These are not harmless statements. They create emotional and spiritual agreements. The more you say them, the more real they become, even if they were never true to begin with. You are unconsciously giving your pain a voice and letting it rewrite your identity. Prayer asks God to reshape your circumstances, but your negative speech reshapes your mindset, and mindset is the filter through which you experience everything. Another silent danger of negative self-talk is that it narrows your expectations. When you constantly say, "My life will never change," you subconsciously stop looking for breakthroughs. Even if God places new possibilities in front of you, you will walk right past them because your mind has been trained not to expect anything good. It is like praying for open doors but convincing yourself that they don't exist. You ask for blessings, but you condition your heart not to receive them. Doubt and belief cannot live in the same space. Your words determine which one grows stronger. Negative self-talk also affects the emotional atmosphere you carry. When you consistently speak hopeless words, you start to feel hopeless. Those feelings influence your decisions, and those decisions shape your life. A person who constantly says, "I'm not capable," hesitates to take steps forward. Someone who believes, "I'm always unlucky," stops trying. Someone who repeatedly states, "I will never be loved," may push people away unconsciously. Prayer may ask God to move mountains, but negative speech builds new ones. Your words can create emotional barriers that blessings cannot cross until you change the way you speak. The truth is, God never created you to live defeated. But negative self-talk trains your spirit to accept defeat even when victory is within reach. Changing your speech is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about refusing to give your fears more authority than your faith. When you catch yourself saying, "I can't," you shift to, "With God I can." When "I'm not enough" rises up, you replace it with, "I'm growing, I'm learning, and I'm capable." This shift doesn't just change your mood, it changes your spiritual alignment. Faith begins where negative self-talk ends. The moment you stop speaking against yourself, your prayers finally have room to breathe, to work, and to manifest into the blessings meant for your life. Complaining is one of those habits that slips into our lives so quietly that we barely notice it, yet it has one of the strongest effects on our spiritual progress. Many people pray for peace but spend the entire day speaking words soaked in frustration. They ask God for blessings but continuously talk about everything that's wrong in their lives. They thank God in prayer, yet complain in conversation. This creates a spiritual imbalance, almost like taking one step forward and two steps back. Complaining shifts your focus away from what God is doing and magnifies everything that isn't happening yet. It drains gratitude, and gratitude is one of the most powerful spiritual magnets for answered prayers. When someone constantly says, "Why is this happening to me? Why can't my life ever get better? Why do I always suffer?" they unknowingly step into a mindset of lack. Complaining is often rooted in the belief that God is not doing enough, or that life is unfairly targeting you. But the moment complaining becomes a daily language, you stop seeing the subtle blessings that are quietly supporting you. You stop noticing the progress that's happening slowly. You overlook the strength God is building within you. Complaining turns your focus inward, toward dissatisfaction, instead of upward, toward faith. There is a spiritual principle that many people miss: what you magnify becomes your reality. When you magnify problems, they expand in your perception. You begin waking up expecting struggle. You interact with people assuming disappointment. You move through life believing that something will always go wrong. Even small inconveniences become proof that nothing ever works out. Complaining rewires the mind to always search for something to be unhappy about. And once your mind is trained in that direction, even blessings look too small. You start comparing your life to others, feeling like you're always behind, always lacking, always falling short. Prayer may ask God to change circumstances, but complaining convinces your heart that those circumstances will never change. Another hidden danger of constant complaining is that it closes spiritual doors of gratitude. Gratitude is not just being thankful when something good happens. Gratitude is keeping your heart open even when life feels confusing or delayed. Complaining does the opposite. It closes your heart and blocks the spiritual flow that gratitude creates. When you complain, you dwell on what's missing rather than recognizing what's already present. You stop giving thanks for the blessings you do have, and your spirit begins to shrink under the weight of negativity. The more you complain, the less you appreciate. And the less you appreciate, the more you feel empty, even when God is providing. Complaining also carries emotional consequences. It drains your energy, makes you more reactive, and deepens stress. It affects the way you speak to people and how they respond to you. A person who constantly complains becomes harder to help because their mind is conditioned to reject solutions. Even when God sends answers, they might not trust them. Even when opportunities appear, they may see them as problems. Complaining blinds you to possibilities. It convinces you that nothing will change, making you less likely to take the steps that lead to transformation. Sometimes people complain out of exhaustion, not realizing they are feeding a cycle that keeps them exhausted. They say, "I'm tired of everything," not understanding that these words strengthen the very fatigue they want God to remove. They say, "My life is miserable," not knowing that such statements only deepen the feeling of misery. Prayer brings hope, but complaining poisons that hope. The heart can hold hope and frustration at the same time, not for long. One will overpower the other. The truth is, everyone experiences hardship. Everyone faces moments when life feels unfair. But what separates those who rise from those who remain stuck is their response to those moments. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can control how you speak about what happens. Choosing gratitude doesn't mean ignoring pain, it means refusing to let pain dictate your attitude. It means saying, "Even though this is hard, I trust that God is working." When you shift from complaining to trusting, you create space for blessings to move. You open doors instead of closing them. Imagine waking up and instead of saying, "Here we go again," you say, "Thank you for another chance to grow." Instead of thinking, "Nothing goes my way," you say, "Something good is coming, even if I can't see it yet." That small shift in language transforms your spiritual environment. Gratitude releases peace. Peace strengthens faith. Faith opens doors. When you stop complaining, you stop blocking what God has already prepared for you. And that's when blessings finally find their way into your life, because your words no longer push them away. Fear has a way of slipping into our language so naturally that we barely notice when we start speaking it. It shows up in small phrases like, "I'm scared of what might happen, what if everything goes wrong?" Or, "I don't think I'm strong enough for this." And while fear is a normal human emotion, letting it dominate your speech can quietly interfere with your prayers. You may be asking God for strength, guidance, or breakthrough, but when your everyday words are rooted in fear rather than trust, you create a spiritual conflict. Fear pulls you backward while faith tries to move you forward. And you can't walk in both directions at the same time. Many people pray with sincerity, but their language throughout the day contradicts the very things they're praying for. They pray for protection but spend the whole day saying, "I'm afraid I'll lose everything." They ask for clarity, yet constantly repeat, "I'm so confused, I don't know what to do." They pray for good outcomes but speak as if only the worst outcomes are possible. This kind of speech conditions your heart to expect failure instead of favor, disaster instead of direction. And what the heart expects, it prepares for. Fearful speech prepares you inwardly for defeat, even when God is preparing you for victory. One of the biggest spiritual problems with speaking fear is that it limits your vision. Fear narrows your imagination to only negative possibilities. It convinces you that the unknown is always dangerous and that tomorrow will always be worse than today. So even when God is guiding you towards something better, fear paints it as a threat. You begin avoiding opportunities that were meant to elevate you. You step back from challenges that were meant to grow you. You shrink your prayers to match your fear instead of expanding your faith to match God's power. And slowly, fear becomes your script. Another hidden effect of speaking fear is that it keeps you in a constant state of emotional tension. When your words are filled with, "What if?" your body responds as if danger is always around the corner. You live mentally and emotionally exhausted, not because danger is present, but because fear is constantly being spoken. This drains your spiritual energy. It becomes harder to hear God clearly because fear is loud. It becomes harder to trust because fear demands your attention. It becomes harder to receive blessings because fear convinces you they won't last. Fear speaks in a voice that blocks the softer voice of faith. This is why fearful words are so spiritually dangerous. They don't just describe a moment, they shape your mindset. Someone who constantly says, "I'm scared of failing," will avoid taking any steps just to avoid the possibility of failure. Someone who says, "I'm scared people will hurt me," may push away genuine love. Someone who says, "Everything always goes wrong," will start seeing setbacks even where progress is happening. The more you give your fear a voice, the more room you give it in your life. And once fear becomes your language, your faith begins to weaken silently. Prayer requires belief that God can do what you cannot. But fear-based speech gives more power to the problem than to the solution. It magnifies the obstacle instead of magnifying the one who can move the obstacle. Speaking fear doesn't make you weak. It just means you haven't recognized how much authority your words actually carry. Every fear-filled statement is like building a wall around yourself, brick by brick, blocking the very breakthroughs you're asking for. Yet the moment you begin shifting your language, things change. Replacing fearful phrases doesn't mean pretending you're not scared. It simply means not letting fear guide your tongue. Instead of, "What if everything goes wrong?" you start saying, "What if everything goes right?" Instead of, "I'm scared I can't handle this," you remind yourself, "God will strengthen me to handle whatever comes." Instead of, "The future worries me," you say, "The future may be unknown to me, but it's not unknown to God." These small shifts move you from fear to trust, from worry to peace, from limitation to possibility. The more you speak hope, the more room you give God to work. The more you speak trust, the quieter fear becomes. Fear might still whisper, but it no longer controls your decisions. Faith takes the lead. And when faith leads your speech, it begins aligning your heart with the blessings that have been waiting for you. Suddenly the future doesn't look threatening, it looks full of potential. Problems don't look impossible, they look solvable. Life doesn't feel overwhelming, it feels guided. And in that shift, your prayers finally flow without being blocked by the weight of fearful words. There's a kind of language people use without realizing it that quietly works against their own blessings. It's the habit of speaking curses over your life, your future, your relationships, your finances, and even your identity, often in moments of frustration, disappointment, or emotional exhaustion. Someone goes through a setback and immediately says, "I'm so unlucky." Someone experiences a breakup and concludes, "My relationships always fail." Someone struggles with money and declares, "Money never stays with me." These statements may feel like emotional release, but spiritually, they become powerful declarations that shape your expectations and influence your outcomes. You might be praying for breakthroughs, but your words are predicting breakdowns. You're asking God for blessings, but you're programming yourself for disappointment. What makes this type of speech even more dangerous is that it becomes a pattern. The more you repeat these phrases, the more they feel like truth. Over time, they transform from simple expressions into beliefs. And beliefs shape behavior. If you tell yourself often enough that you're unlucky, your mind becomes conditioned to ignore moments of good fortune and focus only on difficulties. If you declare that your relationships always fail, you may unconsciously sabotage healthy connections or overlook red flags because your mind is following a script you wrote with your own words. If you repeatedly say that good things never last, you may stop allowing yourself to fully enjoy blessings out of fear that they will disappear. Your speech creates the lens through which you interpret your life. Many people don't realize that they are speaking against their own answered prayers. They pray for confidence but constantly repeat phrases that tear their confidence down. They ask God to heal their hearts, yet they affirm over and over that they are broken beyond repair. They pray for stability, but they speak instability into existence through the language they choose. Words are seeds. Once planted, they grow into thoughts, habits, and choices that shape your daily reality. When someone says, "I'm always stuck," they begin to live as if no opportunities exist. When they say, "Nothing ever gets better," their mind becomes closed to solutions. And when they say, "I just have bad luck," they begin to attribute everything, even things unrelated, to that belief. Eventually, their language becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, not because they are cursed, but because they are constantly declaring defeat over themselves. This type of negative prophecy can also affect the speed of your blessings. Imagine praying for an open door but continuously declaring that doors don't open for you. Imagine praying for a healthier mindset but repeatedly calling yourself hopeless. Imagine asking for abundance yet constantly saying, "There's never enough." These words create a spiritual contradiction. Your prayers are asking God to move you into a new season, but your language keeps you mentally anchored in the old one. It's like praying for sunshine while continually speaking storms into existence. The blessings are there, but your mindset can't receive them. Another effect of this speech is the emotional weight it carries. Speaking negatively about yourself or your life drains you, even if you don't notice it immediately. These words reinforce discouragement and deepen the feeling of being stuck. They make you approach life with low expectations, causing you to walk into situations already believing they will fail. And when you expect failure, you notice failure more easily. Hope becomes harder to hold on to. Confidence becomes fragile. Even moments of progress feel temporary because your words have conditioned you to believe that setbacks are inevitable. This emotional heaviness makes it harder for you to recognize God's work in your life. The louder your self-curses become, the softer God's guidance feels. But the moment you begin shifting this language, the atmosphere around you starts to change. Instead of saying, "I'm always unlucky," you tell yourself, "Good things find me at the right time." Instead of declaring, "My relationships always fail," you affirm, "I'm learning, I'm healing, and I'm attracting healthier connections." Instead of repeating, "Nothing ever works out," you say, "Something better is coming, and I'm preparing myself to receive it." These small changes in language don't magically erase problems, but they reshape your expectations, and where expectation goes, energy follows. When you speak differently, you think differently. When you think differently, you make different choices. And when you make different choices, your life begins to shift in a direction that aligns with the prayers you've been asking for. Blessings flow more easily when your speech stops blocking them. When you stop cursing your future, you start allowing God to build it. When you stop speaking defeat, you create space for victory to grow. When you stop declaring that you're stuck, you begin noticing the paths that were available all along. Changing your words is not just a mindset shift, it's a spiritual realignment. It's choosing to speak life instead of limitation. It's choosing to open doors instead of closing them. And the moment you stop cursing your own blessings, you begin stepping into the life that was meant for you.